The following is a interview with Lyme Conqueror. Her channel is Lyme Conqueror. Stephanie. Her channel is fantastic. A lot of good information. I've taken away some things from it, and I think you will too. Uh, oh yeah, the disclaimer. Neither one of us are giving medical advice. I'd like to keep my channel.
Correct. Yes, important.
Yeah, it's just a little baby, but I think I'm going to do well. So, um, all right. Do you just want to tell us, or me, what happened, or um, yeah,
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I try not to dwell too much on the first part of my story because it's kind of sad. So I don't
yeah,
know if you've seen on my own channel, like when I had the My Story video, I kind of started in the middle when I started treatment. But just to go back to the beginning, I started having headaches when I was a little kid, about 5 or 6 years old. Don't know when I got bitten by a tick, but I started having more and more symptoms as I got older. And in my mid 20s, I kind of had a breakdown in my health. And then when I was 26, I met a girl who had Lyme disease and realized that I had a lot of the same symptoms that she did. And before that, I didn't know what was wrong with me. And so she kind of gave me a few keywords to search, and I sort of looked online and I was like, oh my goodness, I think this is what I have. It's like so similar to all of my problems. So I did a lot of reading. I actually did like 2 years of reading and calling people up and talking to people and trying to learn as much as I could before I actually went to a doctor. I'm kind of one of those people who who holds off going to the doctor as long as possible. But when I finally went to the doctor, he agreed to get me tested with IGNX, which is, if you're a little familiar with the Lyme world, it's one of the better labs, and um, came back positive. And but then uh, he suggested, basically after diagnosing me with Lyme disease, that I go to a psychiatrist and take antidepressants, and that was kind of like the plan. And I didn't accept that. So I kind of walked out the door and never went back, and um, didn't do anything for a while. And then through all of my reading and talking to people, the only thing that had really stood out to me as a possible solution was the Rife machine idea. And so I decided to pursue that, found one online for um, a secondhand one that was quite cheap, and my parents actually bought it for me and drove to Michigan to pick it up for me. And again, I waited a while because I really didn't know what to do with it. It just looked kind of like something out of Frankenstein's lab. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. But a friend of mine who is a scientist took a look at it, and then she actually pursued looking into it, and she bought me Brian Rosner's book, Lyme Disease and Rife Machines. So I read that over the summer of 2009, and then I started treatment. And yeah, the rest is history. The rest is a good story, because I have gotten steadily better since that time. I've had some ups and downs, had a lot of trouble with my teeth.
oh yeah, me too.
But yeah, some terrible, terrible headaches that I've gone through along the way. But overall, it's been steady improvement. And I'm just so grateful that I found something that works well for me. So that's my story.
Cool. Well, that answers all the questions I had.
All right.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to jump up, so my eyes are going to jump up and down, just so I'm on track,
Sure.
and I'll take
Mhm.
notes periodically. And I am focused on you, just so you know. The questions,
All right. No
what I'm
worries.
writing is about you. I'm not distracted or anything.
No problem.
Um, oof. Well, how are you doing? Well, what were you doing before you got sick? I mean, you had the headaches. I assume you were working.
Um, a little bit on and off. I didn't really work properly. I didn't really go to college properly, and part of that was because of illness, and the other part of it was just other circumstances in my life. But when I read Brian Rosner's book, I actually was working full time, and I quit my job to be able to start treatment, because as I had read about, the Herc's reaction and everything, I thought I'm going to be spending a lot of time in bed. I'm going to be in a lot of pain. But as it turned out, it actually was a lot milder than I had thought it would be. So eventually I was able to go back to working part-time and then later on to full-time. So
Oh wow. Well, that's inspiring. I mean, you just were like, "Eff it, I'm done being sick." You know what I mean?
well, I was living with my parents at the time, so I kind of had a little safety net there. So, I
Yeah.
know not everybody has that option to just like quit their job, but I'm just, I was in that situation at the time. So
Yeah.
that's what,
Well,
yeah.
still, good for you. Let's see. Um, what did you want to do? Like, were you able to tell me well, you did kind of tell me what happened. Um, I guess we'll skip over. What would you have done differently? I guess if you were just like, boom, you were talking to you. I think it was like
Yeah.
4 years ago or something. We'll say
Yeah.
10 years ago.
There's a couple of things I would have done differently. One of them that comes to mind immediately is that, with using a Rife machine, you kind of have this vast list of frequencies. If you look online at the consolidated annotated frequency list, there's just like hundreds and hundreds of frequencies that you can try out for all kinds of different things. And I actually went through the whole list, and I noted down all the ones that were for Lyme disease, Bartonella, Babesia, and all the things that are sort of related to Lyme disease, including things that are possibly related, like fibromyalgia, what do you call it, ALS, and those that are like, people suspect that there might be a connection there, but we don't really know for sure. I kind of like put together my own list of all of the sort of Lyme world frequencies, and it's just this. It's like 7 pages long, just
Okay.
numbers, and I think that just my personality was kind of like I want to get through the list, kind of. And so I spent very little time with the individual frequencies, like kind of in an attempt to get through them all. And
Sure.
I feel like I should have just taken the time to run each one for 3 minutes, because you kind of need that time to sort of do the work, and instead of trying to get through the list so fast, just try to actually do it right. So that's one thing I definitely would do differently. Another thing is I've really been a little bit of a purist when it comes to Rife machines and electromedicine, because I think it's amazing. Honestly, I think it's an amazing option, because when you use medications, it's so volatile. You have to sort of like juggle so many things. You have to juggle side effects. You have to have other substances to deal with the side effects. You have to make sure that you keep up with everything. And I find that like very overwhelming. But with the Rife machine, it's like it's one thing and you don't really have side effects from that itself, because it's not really causing chemical changes in your body. It's kind of like doing its own thing. And then you do have to deal with the Herxheimers, of course, but I kind of found like that was manageable for me. But the thing is, like, I think that because it was such a good option, and because it was comfortable for me to do, well, comfortable is maybe a bad word, because treatment is not comfortable, but in the sense that I didn't have to juggle a lot of different things, I kind of was very purist about it. I was like, I don't want to use anything antibiotic, because it'll just like scare the bacteria into hiding, and then the Rife machine won't work as well, and I don't want to deal with all of the extra stuff that I have to deal with medications. So I kind of avoided substances sort of like the plague for a long time. But there are certain problems that I've had that I just realized I really should have tried some medications, or supplements, things like that, instead of just being such a purist about the Rife machine. For example, well, actually I have it right here. This little bottle that I keep around now is basically it's olive oil, and I just have cinnamon, clove, and oregano essential oils in there. And I started using it like a year ago, just on my gums, because I've had terrible problems with my teeth, and it really, really has made a difference, like for the better. And I kind of feel like I wonder if I could have avoided the terrible problems I've had with my teeth if I had just done something simple like that, being willing to use substances, because for a long time I was afraid to try essential oils because I just thought I'm going to react so strongly and I don't want them to interfere with my treatment and so on. But the thing is, like, I think that you have to be open-minded and be willing to try different things. So I guess those are the two main things I would do differently.
Okay. Just real quick for my viewer, it's
Sure.
not plural yet. So for my
Wait,
viewer,
I subscribed today. I subscribed today.
oh, awesome, my viewers.
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay. For my viewers, a Rife machine. Just ultra brief. Let's see, how can I do this really succinctly? It's sort of like a bacteria is a repeatable structure, or a repeated structure, and it is a structure. And what you're trying to do is find the frequency of that structure. Every structure has a frequency. Um, uh, it's kind of counterintuitive, but like a man on a bridge, if he timed his jumps perfectly, the bridge would start to shake because he would
Right.
be adding energy to every rebound. So
Yes.
how's that?
That's a really good explanation. I'm a lot less technical when I try to explain it to people because I'm not very technical myself. But yeah, so basically it's like anything can be shaken to death, but you just have to do it at the right speed, basically. And that's what frequency is. So like an electromagnetic um, pulse or field or current is basically like going back and forth at a certain speed, a certain frequency. And if you find the right speed or the right frequency, you can kill different things, like different microorganisms. Like that's usually how I explain it to people. But yeah, I think your your explanation is probably a bit better than mine.
Thanks.
But yeah.
Um, all right. Let's see. Well, how are you doing? How am I to do this out of order? How are you doing now? I guess, yeah.
I'm doing good. I had a little bit of a relapse. I just talked about how you can't be a purist and how you have to be willing to use substances, but I kind of got myself in a bad situation because I was really noticing babesia was coming to the forefront. I have various co-infections, and one of them is babesia. And so I was just like, all right, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to beat babesia. And that's what I'm going to focus on right now. And so I read a book about it and I, got the different substances that I needed to tackle this. And then I was really struggling with the side effects and I just couldn't keep up with handling the side effects. So then I thought like, I know the Rife machine works, so I'm just going to go back to my roots and I'm going to go back to using the Rife machine because at least I can handle that treatment. So, kind of the flip side of the coin of what I just said about being open minded. Sometimes you do have to just go take a step back, and that's kind of like what I had to do just because I realized I couldn't handle all the stuff that was happening in my body and keep up with, work and all the other stuff I had to do. So I figured, the Ripe machine might be working slowly, but it's steady and I'll just keep on trying that way for now because it's something I can handle. So,
All right. Well, that sort of leads in to what were like some of your bigger mistakes or things you wish you hadn't done. You may have already answered it.
yeah, I mean, kind of like what I said before about, not rushing through the list and also just being open to different treatments and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the biggest mistakes I would say that I've made.
Um, what other things have you tried? Like just even the crazy ones, like
Yeah, well, honestly, I haven't tried a lot. I'm not like a supplement freak. I really don't. I try to avoid taking anything that I don't really need to take. So I haven't tried a whole lot of different things. I'm just trying to think really if there's anything else major that I've tried. Um, well, one thing that I don't know if you can really count this, but anyway, I don't know if you could say I tried it, but it's part of my story was that I was living in a moldy apartment, and it was just, I was really struggling just in every way, like including psychologically. It was like really affecting me. And then I moved to this apartment, which has a window in the bathroom to let the steam out, so it doesn't get all like
Nice.
steamy and moldy in here. And so I really, really noticed the difference when I moved away from the moldy house to a cleaner one, that has a lot of windows. And even like a couple of weeks ago, I went hiking in the mountains, and I also noticed like changes in my body from that as well, which is something that I've read about from like mold avoidance literature, is that like going to a higher altitude can sort of like release toxins in your body that aren't willing to let go. So I don't know what it is about like that higher altitude, but something sort of like unlocks when you get to that higher altitude. So it was interesting for me to see, because I wasn't going climbing because of that. I just had an idea this Sunday. I'm like, I'm gonna go climb a mountain. And but it was something that I noticed. I was like, oh, that actually is true then, what I've read. So yeah, mold avoidance, I think, is something that's overlooked a lot because it's maybe complicated. It means like, getting up and getting out of the house and going somewhere different. And but it's very important, I think, because mold just can kind of keep you stuck in illness.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good. It's just, yeah. Both those things. Like I've just been reading about the mold avoidance, so it's kind of
Oh
cool to
yeah,
hear
yeah.
you, yeah, talk about it. And also, I'm just in the process of getting the Big Daddy Rife machine, the GB4000.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
great.
I
Yeah.
put down a deposit. I got a good deal, I think. We'll see.
Good.
Um, so it's the shipping's a little complicated because it's so heavy, but it's really
Yeah.
weird that
Yeah.
you're doing everything, that are my next
Well,
steps.
I mean, I try to take care of my body, but it's, it can be hard. It's like it's always kind of been my goal, like try to live as normal as possible. Try not to let Lyme disease change the way that I live my life, but in reality, sometimes it does anyway. Sometimes you still have the bad days and you're like, okay, I just have to rest because I can't do anything else. So I'm not saying that I'm, all the way better. I still have bad days, but they're just like way farther in between than they used to be.
Oh,
So that's
oh, go
something
ahead.
to be grateful for.
Sorry. I apologize for interrupting. Um,
That's okay.
I'm not a very good interviewer. What can I say?
I've never been interviewed before, so I wouldn't know.
um, so, are there any things? Well, oh, just quick. Did you try the Bob Beck blood
Yes,
electrolyzer? I think I
yes,
tell me
I
or
do. I'm sorry. What was that?
oh, I don't know if I got it from your videos or from my talking.
Oh,
I can't remember.
yes, I do have the Bob Beck device, and that's one thing also that I found it works really well synergistically with my Rife machine, because I feel like a Rife machine works really well for Borrelia, which is the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. And I think it goes back to your allegory of the bridge, where it's kind of like it's a long and thin organism. You know, it's a spirochete, and because of that, I think that it lends itself very well to Rife machine treatment because it can break like the bridge. But then there are other co-infections that are like Babesia, for example, is a very, very, very tiny organism that's like inside the red blood cells. It's a parasite that goes inside your red blood cells. So it's very, very small, and it's, not long and thin. And so it's like for something like that, I don't know really if the Rife machine is the best kind of option for the co-infections. But what I found is that when I started using the Bob Beck device, which is also called the blood electrification machine, right?
Yeah.
So it works on a different principle, right? It sort of sends electric currents through your bloodstream. And what I found is that when I started using that, I really started herxing symptoms of Babesia and symptoms of like worm parasites. And so I kind of felt like it was hitting things that the Rife machine wasn't hitting or wasn't working as well for. So now I kind of alternate back and forth between the two. Like I use the Rife machine one week and then the next week I'll use the Bob Beck device. I wanted to use them more often than once a week, but I kind of find that that's as much as I can handle. So at the moment, it's kind of like a once a week thing that I do.
Cool, very cool. All right. Yeah, and I just ordered one, I think, because I got it from your channel. So I saw it on
Oh, okay.
the channel. You casually mentioned it or something. I was just like, that's
Yeah.
$80. I'm buying one right now.
I know. I mean, like I would like to say this to anyone who's like thinking about doing Rife machine treatment, but they're like, I can't afford a Rife machine. Like, try the Bob Beck device. Like, it's somewhere to start, and it's only like $100. Like, and you can build them yourself if you know how. I don't know how, so I bought mine. But it's like, it's actually super cheap for what it can do. So yeah, it's somewhere to start. Although by itself, I don't think it can heal like Lyme disease, but it's something, you know.
Yeah, it'll move the ball, give you a little more energy to go to work, you know. Um,
Yeah, can
which,
start to clean up the mess.
where did you get your Bob Beck?
I got it from some guy in Eastern Europe. Like I just Googled it, and I guess because of like the Google cookies, because I live in Europe, it took me to this website that was in Europe. So I don't know, the guy was like from Slovakia or Slovenia or something, but he kind of has his own website and he builds them and sells them. So yeah,
I'll have you.
I don't know.
I'll probably email you and ask you for that. Maybe I'll
Sure,
even
sure,
link it in the description. Um,
sure.
I feel so professional. Link in the
Yeah,
description below.
that's right. Check the
Um,
link.
yeah. Um, let's see. There was one other big one I want to know. Um, oh yeah, I guess. Well, what do you want to try next? Do you have anything on the horizon? Or say I gave you $10,000. Would you do like the SOT or, go to some clinic or, some clinic in Mexico
Um,
or something?
my opinion about clinics is that, you know, what people say, Lyme disease is a marathon, not a sprint. And I kind of feel like clinics are more set up for sprinting. It's kind of like you go there for a couple weeks and you might feel a lot better because they're giving you good food, you're getting like good, you know, water with minerals and electrolytes and all this kind of stuff. So it might feel like, oh, I feel so much better. But then you go home and, you know, it's not like you're actually cured by the clinic.
Yeah,
So like what I would suggest, like especially because I'm coming from a background of like, you know, I'm not rich, I've never had a lot of money, and I think that a lot of people get discouraged because they're like, I can't pay for treatment, and they think that they need thousands and thousands of dollars to pay for treatment. And I'm just kind of like, you don't really, you know, you just have to choose carefully what your treatments are. But anyway, all that aside, to answer your question about, you know, what would I do if I had money or whatever, you know what I really would do?
uh,
I would fund research to see which is the best Rife machine, because that is the one question that everybody asks. They're like, which is the best Rife machine? And it's like, we don't know, because the only information we have is either from people selling the machines and saying that theirs is the best, or it's from people like me who I've only tried one Rife machine. So I don't know like which one is better than the other. You know, I don't really consider the Bob Beck device a Rife machine, but it, you know, with my Rife machine and the Bob Beck device, those are the only two I've ever tried. So I can't say how it compares to others. And this is basically always a problem in the Rife machine community, like people who are trying to, you know, figure out which one should I buy. And there's basically no kind of unbiased source of information where they can compare like the pros and cons of the different ones, because it's always biased. So I think like if I had $10,000, I would like set up like a super duper impeccable, you know, research project and just have some like really hardcore scientists just be like, figure it out, you know, figure out which is the best one and for which different reasons, and then people can actually have an answer. So that's what I would do if I had the money. But as far as myself, as far as I go, like I think I'm at this point in treatment where I'm kind of having to fine tune a little bit. So that's been a bit of a challenge because I kind of feel like for, 12 years, I was just kind of plugging away doing the same thing, which was just using the Rife machine like every, 10 to 14 days and, doing detox and trying to eat well and, drink water and make sure that I had the minerals I needed and, you know, going for walks. Like, so just very, very basic stuff that I've just been doing, kind of like plugging away at it. And that has actually worked very well. And I think there's a lot to be said for just, just showing up and just doing that. And that it doesn't have to be complicated. But now I am getting to the point in treatment where I don't know if it's because the Lyme is much quieter now. I don't know if it's because there isn't as much Lyme there. So the other co-infections are sort of coming to the forefront. And I'm kind of having to learn how to fight different kinds of battles, kind of having to develop different skills and learn different things to, how to hit these different co-infections. So I think that's kind of my next step is just kind of learning how to fine tune, learning how to differentiate between the different co-infections and also like, mold problems and heavy metal toxicity and different things like that. And just being able to recognize, oh, this symptom is coming from that. So that means I need to hit in a different way. I need to do a different kind of treatment or, and yeah, it has been challenging because like I said, for a long time, I was just kind of doing the same thing over and over. But I think that's kind of where I am right now, where I have to get a little bit more smart about what to do. But what I always tell people, and I just want to throw this out there, is that if you're very sick and you suspect that you have lots of different co-infections and lots of different problems and you just don't know where to start, I just say like do the most obvious thing. You don't have to know everything at once. You don't have to like know all the different co-infections and get tests for them all and like have different treatments for them all and keep up with all the treatments. It's just like just start. Just like do the most obvious thing. If you're in a moldy house, get out. If you know you have Lyme disease, just start treating Lyme disease. Just start. Just get started. And as you go along, you'll learn more and more and slowly learn like what you need to do. But I know it's easy to get overwhelmed because these diseases are usually all sort of mixed up together and it is hard. It is hard to differentiate them and to know, how to tell them apart and, what to do really.
Yeah. Well, I guess then the final question, and I do want to talk to you for another hour. I prefer.
I mean, I'm fine with that. If you want to talk a little longer, that's fine with me. I don't have plans for this evening, so.
Oh, okay. I'll ask the final question, and then I'll cut the recording, and
Okay,
then we'll just you know say goodbye.
sure.
So we'll say goodbye twice, I
All
guess.
right.
So, don't
All
hang
right.
up when I say goodbye the first time.
Okay.
Um. Where should people go, or where would you go again, or where do you like to go for information about getting just any sort of treatment or improvement
Um,
or anything?
right. I mean, the book that I always recommend is the one that helped me get started, which is Lyme Disease and Rife Machines by Brian Rosner. He also wrote a few other books that I've also read. The second one is called The Top 10 Lyme Disease Treatments. So that was kind of very helpful as a second step. After you get started, you kind of like start learning more stuff. Then he wrote One Freedom from Lyme Disease, and that's more, I read it last year and I kind of felt like it was just the perfect time for me to read it because it's more like about that fine tuning stage that I'm finding myself in now. And then of course now Brian Rosner has moved more towards mold avoidance. And so he's written a book about that. And he also has written, he's constantly putting videos and writing stuff about mold avoidance now as well. But so that's kind of been, I guess those Brian Rosner's books have been probably the most helpful thing to me. I think that I think that he's this kind of person who is just he just is like an explorer, you know, and he's kind of like willing to try a lot of different things. And I kind of like really relate to that. I know like a lot of people are like, just tell me what to do, you know, just I want the doctor to just take control and just like tell me what to do and I'll just obey. But I'm kind of like more of a person where it's like, no, if it's not working, I'm not going to do that. And I kind of feel like when I read his books, it was kind of like this very intrepid kind of spirit in the books where I really connected with that, and I was like, yeah, I get this, and I'm happy that I found something that shows me I can actually do it. There's stuff that I can do to get better. So that's kind of been what's helped me the most. But then also as I've been going into other co-infections more, um, James Schaller has written some good books about like Babesia. I know he's going to come out with one about Bartonella soon. So those are good books as well. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Toxic. I don't remember I've got my Kindle right here. I'll just check the name of the author, but I want to recommend this book in the Lyme communities that I'm part of on Facebook. But I haven't recommended it yet because I haven't finished reading it. But it's called Toxic: Heal Your Body from Mold Toxicity, Lyme Disease, Multiple Chemical Sensitivities, and Chronic Environmental Illness. And it's by Neil Nathan. And one thing that I really like about this book is, for one thing, it's newer information. So I think that one thing about Brian Rosner's books is like the first ones were written, 20 years ago almost. And it's like a lot has happened since then. And kind of like there's a lot of new information. And so I find that reading this book, Toxic, has helped me to kind of catch up with the new stuff. But also it's specifically about very sensitive patients and how to treat patients who react to every kind of treatment. And I think that that's something also where it's just been this question that nobody had an answer to. Like, as I've participated in Lyme groups, it's like often people will be like, everything that I do, I just react so strongly. And anything that I take, I just have this big reaction to it. Like, what can I do? And I never had an answer to that. I was always just like, well, maybe just take a step back and, focus on your diet a little bit and try to focus on building your body up a little bit before you try to kill anything. But I feel that this book kind of has some answers, and I think that it would be really useful for doctors to read. So if anyone's watching this and you feel like, oh, that's me, I'm that patient that can't do anything because I'm just too sick, maybe just consider buying this book for your doctor and just asking them to look at it and see if that can help to, come up with a plan for how to go forward with treatment. So, yeah.
Um, cool. Well, I think that's all I've got.
All right.
Think. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you want to add. I'm shooting for under 40. We've got about
Okay.
6. If there's anything you want to add to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I keep on talking about Lyme disease, but I think that you are coming from an ME background, right? Like, was it myalgic and encephalomyelitis, right? Is that your
um,
background
no,
or
I don't know what's going on.
okay.
I was, all I know is I had a massive dose of thallium. It was to the dose of poison. It was 3.5 micros to a gram.
Okay.
It came out of my blood about 2 years after I got sick. So,
Okay.
or my test, anyways. So it's super high and I know when it happened. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, because I
maybe
thought that
fine.
because your
So,
channel is chronic illness me or chronic
yeah,
disease
chronic
me.
illness, me.
Chronic illness me, so I thought the ME was for ME CFS, but is not
No, it's
related
just
then.
me.
Oh, okay, just me. All right. Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood then.
No, it's my fault, really. All right. Yeah, cool. Well, what were you gonna add? Or
Yeah, I was just gonna say like that I guess I was speaking more specifically about Lyme disease, but I know that maybe other people watching this might that might not be their main problem. Or maybe it's just one of the problems that they have, but it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where if you have one, it's very likely that you have the other as well. Because these things all kind of work together with, Lyme disease, Bartonella, Babesia, those three main ones, but then there's also other co-infections, and they almost always go along with heavy metal toxicity and mold illness as well. So yeah, it's not all about Lyme disease, but that's kind of like, it was my starting point. Lyme disease was my starting point, but now I'm kind of starting to explore the others a little bit more because I have to to get better.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh, well, thank you
Yeah.
very much. We'll do the first goodbye. So goodbye.
All right. All right. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for the opportunity. Bye.
Find this.
Oh, one more thing.
Oh,
Just wanted to say, yeah, I do have my own YouTube channel as
oh
well.
yes. I'm so
which is,
sorry. I was supposed to plug
Oh,
that.
yeah, sorry. No, I'm not trying to just I'm not in any way trying to minimize your channel. I just wanted to throw it out there because I did put a lot of work into it. And it was kind of the reason that I did that project for 1 year, one video per week for a year, was because I wanted to leave behind what I've learned on my journey. And that's why I'm happy that I sort of have that little library of videos that I made, because now when people ask specific questions, I can just say, oh, I made a video about that. So if you want to check out my videos and just see what's worked for me and watch me using a Rife machine and talking about frequently asked questions about Rife machines, or, I talk about lots of different things on the channel. It's called Lyme Conqueror, and you can just search it on YouTube. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for plugging.
All
I'm
right.
supposed to, that's the courteous thing to do, is be like, I should have mentioned in the beginning. So thank you. I'm glad you mentioned it. All right.
Sure. And everyone watching this, subscribe to Alex's channel, please.
Immediately.
Give him some followers.
All right. I'm gonna cut here.